which is coming to you from Poland. And as you can see, I am in my motorhome. And today I'm going to talk about the Victory Parade, or the Victory Day, which takes place in Russia every year. In fact, it's not just Russia. It takes place in other countries which made up the Soviet Union, part of the Soviet colonial empire, if you like. Sorry, my thing's okay. I've got to put it up there a bit easier. To give you a little bit of the history of this thing, because I saw all sorts of nonsense today on the television talking about when this Victory Day actually dates from. Sorry, again, it's fallen down. I want to have to change this a bit. My gimbal stopped working, and again, sorry. Oh, there we go. I hope that'll hold. My gimbal stopped working the other day. Right, so the idea of the Victory Parade actually dates to 1945, believe it or not. But the first Victory Parade was not actually held on the 9th of May. Why is it the 9th of May? Well, the reason is because the surrender was signed in the early hours of the 8th of May, and in Reims, in France, and the Soviets didn't accept this, so they wanted another ceremony, which was actually the 8th of May, not the 9th. There's a myth which I've just exploded, and the but it's only slightly a myth, not entirely a myth, because it was a 9th in Russia, so it was just before midnight on the 8th that the surrender was signed. So that's why it's the 9th of May. Indeed, the 9th of May became a holiday, so they had a big parade in June of 1945, which actually I've showed in previous one video I did, and can't remember which video it was now. Hello, Colin. And it was 2 years only, 1946 and 47. So it was a day off for 2 years. And in 1947, the idea of the Victory Parade was scrapped. Indeed, what we see today, well, I mean, not today, what we saw in the past was they had the tanks out and all sorts of other stuff. The military was, and this actually replaced the Day of the Revolution in the way that Russia did things. Now, in the Soviet times, there was only four military parades, and the last two being in 1985 and in 1990. Other than that, it wasn't actually celebrated. The reason, in this way, the reason was the following, and this is quite obvious to understand. It was given as a holiday 2 years running, but they decided against it because what people remembered from the Second World War was suffering, and they remember what had happened. The 20 million plus, we don't exactly know how many Soviet citizens died during the Second World War, and also this was the responsibility of the Soviet government. It was the responsibility of Stalin. Stalin made the alliance with the Nazis. Stalin gave the fuel that allowed the Nazis to conquer France and the Balkans. And Stalin believed Hitler until Hitler actually turned on Stalin. Stalin was quite happy to go along, and we can the thing is, the diplomatic records are available to anybody who wants to read them, so they can't actually deny it. Of course, access to Soviet archives is now somewhat difficult, and not a surprise really. So but the records that existed from the on the German side are utterly clear. Stalin was bending over backwards to help the Nazis, and even in 1940 offered to come in the war on the side of Hitler against the United Kingdom. So let's not forget that. Furthermore, there would have possibly been no war at all had the not being the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact, and the Soviet Union invaded Poland on the 17th of September 1939. It took more than half of Poland, and this despite the fact that it had not all that long previously signed the agreements recognizing Poland's territorial borders, the same way as it today has recognized the a few years ago it recognized the borders of Ukraine, and now it actually it has invaded. So the Victory Day, these things would have been possibly in the minds of some people, but what was in their minds was the suffering, the starvation, the terror, the front passing over twice, and the destruction, the scorched earth policy of the Soviet Union, and then the scorched earth policy of the Nazis. Everything's getting destroyed. What is often forgotten is the amount of people who died during of starvation, and this is something which is millions of people died of starvation in the Soviet Union because of this. And not only that, there were other places where there were famines. There was a famine in Greece, and this is something. It was a famine in India. These are things which are forgotten. It is as though deaths from starvation don't actually matter. In the case of Greece, it was because of the amount of food that was actually stolen. In the case of Soviet Union, it was theft by both sides, and also then the destruction. In the case of India, it was the fact that the British government didn't do what it could have potentially have done to stop this actually happening. But anyway, I'm coming off the point there a little bit. So as has just been mentioned, we also have to bear in mind what had happened to the Soviet Union. There were, first of all, there was the Holodomor, 1932-33, a deliberate act of starving what they then called fascists, Ukrainians. So it's strange, they're still using the same words nearly 90 years later, calling Ukrainians fascists. That was the reason Stalin and others, the Kremlin, used for the Holodomor. Then we had the purges. Admittedly, there's a slight difference because the purges tend to happen to people in cities, whereas the Holodomor was, okay, it hit the people in the countryside first, but the countryside can't supply food, then the people die in the cities as well. There is an account in Anthony Beevor's book on Stalingrad about starvation in Kharkiv, and he talks about people working in the theatre in Kharkiv and how they managed to survive. But at a time when literally thousands of people died, or tens of thousands died of hunger. So this is not something to be celebrated. So it wasn't celebrated in the Soviet Union. Now, with the end of communism, and there was this desire probably for a new day off, and so this came back, particularly in the time of Putin. And what Putin has attempted to achieve using this military might, first of all, this is this idea that other countries are going to be frightened of Russia because it's got a lot of military might. And you may think, how does that affect the average person in the street? Well, to be quite honest, personally, I'd rather have more food and a day off work and sit at home with a beer and watch the football match than actually work in order to provide things for the defense, or in this case, the attack industry. But and this is a thing which is often forgotten. Military might comes from the work of the people who have to actually to do it. But what Putin has done by putting on these displays, and these displays are particularly violent from about 2000, not violent's not the right word, but militaristic, about 2008, where because the veterans were now dead and they couldn't start complaining at things about the glorification of war, and thus it was possible to glorify the war, particularly after 2008, where we had the Russian victory against tiny Georgia. And particularly after 2014, where the hello Noah, where and Irene, where the Russians were winning, they were able to occupy a large part of Ukraine, the Crimea, and half of the oblasts of Donetsk and Lugansk, and so there was these things happening, which led to this more militaristic militaristic display. And this, it would seem, actually went down well with a large amount of the population. Now, it's obviously there are military displays in other places. It's not the first time. I witnessed one in France on the July the 14th. I saw one in Poland on the 15th of August. In fact, I've got a video of the one 15th of August 2008. It's on my other channel. So there is this military display, but the difference is that in Russia it's clearly aimed to revive the Soviet Empire. And now I hope that there's nobody who'd be daft enough to want to regurgitate the British Empire, regurgitate being the correct word, and it just would make absolutely no sense. But there is this sort of longing, and for many people, the Soviet times, they were better off. They were better off usually because they were younger and they didn't have to get up. They used the toilet 17 times every night. And so these are things which people actually look back to and remember. So what about what happened today? Well, I said a few days ago that in my opinion, this drone attack, the point of this drone attack was or fireworks probably was to use as an excuse to stop people doing something which is called the Immortal Battalions, so the March of the Immortal. That is when people will get pictures of veterans who were killed in the war. Normally they were killed in the war, not always. They could have been just veterans. And then they march with them. So this is my grandfather. He fought in the Second World War, etc. Now, in recent years, what's happened has been kids have turned up at schools and things like that, and they've been given placards to actually carry. So that's the show. This is it doesn't have to be somebody you know. I mean, let's face it. I mean, I do biographies of people I think should be remembered. I would never have known them if I'd been around at the same time. And so I don't think there's a problem with that. I've seen some people sort of complain at it, but I think that's nice just to pick somebody as your adopted grandfather or whatever. But what could have happened is that this year people would start turning up with their relatives, and I'm sure Putin remembers very clearly what happened with the Kursk disaster, which happened just a few months after he came to power, when the relatives, and you can find this on YouTube without any problem whatsoever, the relatives were screaming abuse at Putin for allowing this to happen. Now, at the time, and even today, I think it was a bit unfair blaming Putin for it. I mean, there were people who it was, but anyway, the thing with the what we have today is there was only one tank, and I saw somebody write that with the tank itself was made in the tank factory in Kharkiv, and okay, I'll come to that. So I think it's quite a good idea, quite honest. It is supposed to be a victory about the Second World War. Then use a Second World War tank that's still working. And what better tank than the T-34? So from that point of view, I think that was a reasonably good touch. And okay, right. So I've just been asked what are my opinions of alleged false flag missile attacks today on Kiev. I don't think there's the I don't know if, sorry, it may be something happened that I don't know about, but I'm pretty certain that the missile attacks on Kiev were missile attacks. And personally, I've seen them. Well, I haven't seen the missiles as such. I've heard the explosions when they hit the ground. It's not even an explosion; it's like a dull thud more than anything else. So I don't know, but I mean, there's plenty of damage all over the place. So I don't think there's any case of false flags on the Ukrainian side. Anybody can go there. And anybody can see the damage which has happened. I mean, there's places which have been completely destroyed. I can upload videos. I will upload videos showing one day what it's like in the Donbass. I've refrained from doing that because I didn't think it was. I just didn't want to give anything away. But I will do eventually. I'll also upload videos from southern Russia. Sorry, not southern Russia. Sorry, my southern Ukraine. Sorry, parts that were occupied by Russia, and to see the what that looks like as well. Although the destruction there is not like the Donbass. The Donbass is just a mass of destruction, and so I would not claiming false flags on Kiev. It's just, unless there was something I don't know about. The only false flag effectively has been this thing, I believe, that was caused the drone attack. There was a number of people have said, well, what could Russia potentially gain by it? Well, it has gained something, hasn't it? It used this as an excuse to do other things. Let's face it, Putin in 1999 had no problems killing, I think it was 268 people in apartment bombing attacks, which was a clear false flag. I don't think there's any doubt on that one. And so he had no problem there killing 268 people at night when they were asleep. But this rather daft attack on the Kremlin. Somebody also, I don't know if this is true because I haven't checked it, but somebody said there was the firemen were on standby in one video. I haven't seen that. I don't know if it's true or it isn't true. But to suggest that this was an attack on it's totally absurd. I mean, to think that Putin was sleeping on the dome, it's patently ridiculous. It's something like out of Monty Python, and I have no doubt that the brain dead will actually go along with that, but not. I think most people can actually see through it. But the thing is, what's the point of doing it? Because they have no shame in lying anyway, even the most ridiculous lies, and they do it and they get away with it. So anyway, so there I've given you a little bit of the rundown of Victory Day. Why? Then hopefully I've pointed out that this is not a communist idea, really. I mean, it did exist in communist times, but there was only 4 military parades in socialist eras. In fact, and the 4th one was in 1990. I think it's to replace the November Revolution Day. Right, I understand 8,000 people today went through the Kremlin. I saw some of the happy crowds. I listened to Putin's speech, which I thought was pretty ridiculous. I'm pretty certain that he said war in his speech. And I only listened to it once. I must admit I was in the shower at the time as well, so maybe I missed it. But I'm pretty certain he used the word "voyna," war, once he was actually talking. Anyway, I didn't want to sort of listen to again. So thanks very much. So Clayton's just mentioned that it was fling cows at the Kremlin and see how Putin twists that. Yeah, well, that would be that wouldn't be a bad idea. And Colin mentions it was a great patriotic struggle, not war. Indeed, it was. It was the great patriotic struggle. And so, thanks very much for listening today. And what I want to do is to do a live chat on the video, the previous video, I did, which in this case was Goering's yacht, which I thought that would be a good idea because it does allow people to ask questions about things. I mean, it's assuming I know the answers, because if somebody asked me what was the power of the yacht, I haven't got a clue. But I mean, if there's something I can answer questions on, I'll try and answer. And that's after people have actually seen the video. So that seems to me to be a relatively sensible idea. So I'll try and doing that. And John writes, I believe we have that drunken lout Yeltsin to blame for the monster Putin. Yes, I think you're right there, John, but I don't think we can blame him, you know. I think Yeltsin's situation was this, that he was up to no good. He was hand in the till. He needed somebody to give him immunity and to leave his family alone so he could keep the cash. This was a once in a multi-generation opportunity for the Yeltsin family, as somebody I knew at the time in Russia said. So therefore, he took what he could. It was Putin's loyalty to his former boss, Anatoly Sobchak, and Putin stood by Sobchak. Sobchak was the mayor of Petersburg. He was the person who brought Putin into the St. Petersburg town hall, and so Putin was his protege. And when Sobchak himself was accused of corruption and had to flee the country ostensibly for medical treatment, Putin stood by him. Nobody else stood by him, only Putin. And Putin arranged to leave the country without a passport or anything. He went off to France for a couple of years, theoretically to have his heart condition seen to. Anatoly Sobchak died aged only 62 in Kaliningrad. He came back to Russia and he's able to help. But Yeltsin saw this, and I think that it's that Putin had shown his loyalty. And one of the very first things that, if not the first thing that Putin did on the 1st of January, in the early hours of the 1st of January at that, 2000, was to give Yeltsin immunity. So he thanked him. And he set a record that so anybody who's loyal to Putin will get rewarded. So it's loyalty that counts. Putin was loyal to Sobchak. Putin was loyal to Yeltsin. And anybody who's loyal to Putin gets rewarded. But we also saw what happened to those who aren't loyal to him. Clayton says, didn't Goering have a few yachts? No, he only had one, Clayton. John says, I was able to find the engines for the Karen 2 online. Oh, well done. And Clayton mentioned that Karen 2 was named after Goering's wife, whom he missed. And why did Goering call his house and yacht after his wife? Bit strange, especially for his second wife, one would think. Look, I recently met a woman who was married to, I hope she's not watching this, who was married to a British person, and he died, probably the same age as me, I think. And she clearly, it was a wonderful relationship, and so she was telling me all about it, and all about him. And I let her talk all about him, because I thought it was the right thing to do. And I personally wouldn't have had a problem with her. For example, if I had ended up with, I don't think I would, I don't know, I mean, I'm not going to end up with her, but if she'd called her camper van after him, for example, I don't think I would bother. And I think what that does show, I think that shows loyalty to a person, which I think is a very nice thing. But yeah, I do appreciate that calling a house when you're married to someone else after, I presume he discussed it with her, but the very first present he gave her, as I remember, was so he went out on a date with her. He took her down to Pizza Hut or something, and I'm not certain it was Pizza Hut. And then he gave her a present of his dead wife's picture. It's it is rather odd. So anyway, thanks very much for watching. And John says that the Goering shot had BMW diesels. Yeah, I would have expected that. BMW supplied the engines for the for U-boats as well, I think. Or was it AB? No, I say ABB. No, it wasn't ABB because Alan. That's a It's a Swedish company, but it was they were manufactured in what is today ABB plant in Elbląg in what was then East Prussia, for example. Maybe he was conflicted. No, Clayton, I think that shows love for his first wife, and he clearly had a really successful marriage to his second wife. So whatever, Goering was a narcissistic mass murderer, but the fact that he had two successful marriages shows a great deal for that in that one respect. So thanks, all the best. Thanks, Colin. Thanks, Clayton. Thanks, Irena, or Irene. Sorry, John. Everybody else who was here. All the best from me in Poland. Bye for now.